I'm finishing off my day on the campaign trail here in Denman today. Now Denman is outside the electorate, I do understand that, but I'm just on my way home from a couple of meetings that I think are very important meetings that I had today. One of the reasons I like to meet with some people is to learn from their background, learn from their experience and have some of that shared experience. If someone else has gone down a similar path to the one you want to go down, then I think it's really important to learn from them. I don't think that any single person can be the font of all knowledge, and that shared experience I've found throughout my entire business and council career, that shared knowledge is really important. So I always like to listen to what other people have got to say. The second reason I wanted to have the two meetings today was really about the potential that I see if I am successful on the 23rd of March to form relationships with people and make sure that I'm in a position to be able to basically lead on the front foot and hit the ground running and make sure I'm ready to start serving the people of the electorate of Dubbo immediately. And many people that have watched my previous videos know that I met with Joe McGurr, who's the most recently elected member of government, and he is an independent. He won a by-election for the seat of Wagga last year. And I wanted to meet with Joe, and I went down to Wagga and met with Joe and had a discussion with Joe around what he'd found being very new in the Parliament, and just share some of that experience and start to form a relationship with Joe. And that's been great. We've had several discussions since that initial meeting, so it has worked effectively already. I had two other people I wanted to meet with, and they're the two other independents in state government. Alex Greenwich is the member for the seat of Sydney, and he's been a member since 2012. And Greg Piper is the longest serving member that's an independent in Parliament, and he's been elected since 2007 as the member for Lake Macquarie. So I met with both of those individuals today. Alex was great to meet with. He's got a very different seat to the seat of Dubbo, a much smaller seat, as you can imagine, the seat of Sydney being a lot of people in high density housing, certainly high rise housing. And so that was very different there, but it was great to talk to Alex about his experiences and how he's been able to be successful and able to argue for things because he didn't have any of those party constraints around him. And I've got a video that I'd certainly encourage people to watch where I did a quick interview with Alex. I also talked to Greg, and I have met Greg before. I've dealt with Greg because Greg was a mayor up until 2012, so I had come across Greg as a mayor. I also dealt with Greg briefly in my time as mayor when he was a member of Parliament back from 2007. So I had a small relationship with Greg, but I wanted to establish or further connections with that relationship. But also I wanted to just talk to Greg about things that he'd been successful with. And one of the things that struck home with me was when there was a discussion around the amalgamation time, there was a discussion around Lake Macquarie and Newcastle being amalgamated, which would have been a huge super council. And certainly Greg could argue on behalf of the people in his electorate against that amalgamation. The same way Alex argued against the amalgamation involving the city of Sydney and Wallara, Greg was able to argue against the amalgamation, and certainly had several meetings with Mike Baird and with the government to argue against that amalgamation. Of course, that amalgamation didn't go ahead. And it was a great example of where Greg was able to argue very effectively against something, whereas the party person or someone in a party in that environment would not be able to argue in that same way against that. And we saw in our particular area, we had the Deputy Premier of the state as our local member, and there was no argument against the amalgamation, despite the fact that 80% of Dubbo and 75% of Wellington were against the amalgamation. So it was a good example. The other example that Greg spoke to me about was when he first became the member in 2007, it was a government member as the sitting member for that seat in a government that continued on in government, and they were arguing, the people of the electorate were arguing for more police numbers. And that sitting member in the government that was in power were not able to get additional police numbers. And we see this same sort of situation in Wellington and Narromine now in our electorate. When Greg was successful and became the member, as an independent, he went in and argued very strongly for additional police numbers. And just by an independent arguing with the same government that was in power before 2007, he was able to get 30 extra police numbers. So again, it was an example of just how effective an independent can be. Both Alex and Greg did speak to me at length today, and I haven't got all that on the video. That I spent over an hour with Alex and probably 2 hours with Greg. Both of them talked about how effective an independent can be, and the standard party rhetoric that you need someone at the table and you won't get any money if you don't have someone at the table. All of those arguments that were put forward, both Alex and Greg told me, were convenient arguments put forward by a party. But the reality is they've been able to argue very successfully 4 things that they wanted in their electorate, and they were both, I think, are both very effective members and both feel like they're representing their electorates very effectively. So it's been an enjoyable day. I'll continue driving now and get back home to Dubbo, ready to go and talk to more people around Dubbo again tomorrow. But I think it's been a very successful day, just having those couple of meetings here in Sydney and Lake Macquarie today, and I got a lot out of those, and hopefully people will get a lot out of the videos that I've got for them. This has been Mathew Dickerson, your independent voice.